All right, I think we're actually live now. Technical difficulties. Look at that. We couldn't get it up on YouTube. That doesn't sound good. Anyway, welcome to Inside Vaping, your resource for vaping news. Our show airs live bi-weekly every other Tuesday night starting at 10 p.m. EST via YouTube live event at theownpage.com/live. I think somebody might not have the stream muted. I'm not sure which one of us it is. So check your volume sliders on the vapors.tv stream, because that is where we're streaming tonight. Unfortunately, we couldn't get it to work on the own page or on YouTube, but we will put the replay up there for everybody. So just an important note, we are not going to be having a show in 2 weeks because Dane and myself are actually going to be in sunny California on a extended vacation for him and a week-long vacation for me. Dane, how are you feeling about that right now?
I'm pretty stoked to be in Sonoma, although I keep warning you that it's cold, but you don't believe me. So I will report back when James freezes his ass off when we return.
Yeah, I love my shorts. I'm going to be wearing my shorts as much as possible because I can guarantee you it is warmer than Indiana because it's been pretty chilly here lately. So
that's probably true.
Jerry, before we introduce our guest, what's new with you this week? Anything new there?
What's new with me? Well, I just, relevant to our guest, got through a whole line of Johnson Creek Liquid and playing around with their via Elite mod here, their DNA 40 mod. So that was new for this week.
Can I say what a trooper Jerry is this week because he had to move a boat today?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it wasn't mine.
and it wasn't his boat. And the thing was like, it had ice all over it.
It had ice on it. It was like 36 degrees when we took off this morning. Yeah, it was like an icebreaker.
That sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, it was a fun day. A great vacation day.
I'm going to keep spamming the link to vapors.tv in the homepage chat in case people are still looking for it. And if anybody else is in homepage chat, please do the same because we want to make sure people get over here. So one of the things I wanted to bring up is, of course, vape mail. We talk about vape mail every week. But before we even get to that, I'm sure a couple of you have looked at the title of the show and you're thinking, okay, Orwellian. Not everyone is familiar with George Orwell or his works. But basically what we want to do is we want to give you a little definition here of what an Orwellian society would be. So let me bring this up on the screen here. Here's a definition. Orwellian is an adjective describing the situation, idea, or societal condition that George Orwell identified as being destructive to the welfare of a free and open society. So if you've ever heard the term Big Brother or 1984, those are things that were, coined pretty much because of his works. So what we see these days with the World Health Organization and the CDC and several of these other organizations is that they're undermining the efforts of public health advocacy and reduced harm tobacco products. And they're doing that at an alarming rate. And we're going to talk in a little bit about an article about China and the uptick in combustible smoking in China, which is shocking to me, Jerry, because, I mean, as vapors, the majority of our products, a lot of them are coming from China. Mm-hmm. I think it's 90% or more. I know it's mentioned in the article there. But we're going to talk about that. But let's go ahead and introduce our guest first. And we're going to do the interview a little bit later on in the program, but we're very delighted to have Jennie Woods with us from Johnson Creek. Now, Johnson Creek, as you know, has been around for a very long time. There's been, I don't know how to put this politely, there's been a little bit of misinformation out there about Johnson's Creek. There's been a lot of things that need clarification, and Jennie is going to provide us with that, or Jennie is going to provide us with that tonight. She's also going to talk about some new products that we have, but I think it's going to be a revelatory review segment, so we're going to, or interview segment, we're going to get to that next. I am lost right now. I'm trying to find what my next topic was here. Here we go. So this is big news, and of course, Jerry and Dane. I know, Dane, you were watching a video that Grim Green put out a little bit earlier. CASAA put out a national call to action today, and there's some pretty interesting developments. Of course, we've been talking a while about the grandfather date. And this has to do with that grandfather date. Let me go ahead and bring this up here. This is HR 2058, which is a proposal that they change that grandfather date. And for those of you who don't understand how that affects us, let me go ahead and get an explanation of what HR 2058 is here. So, the FDA Deeming Authority Clarification Act of 2015. This change would allow for all vapor products currently on the market to remain on the market without being subject to the burdensome, read prohibitive, pre-market FDA approval application process. Now, this seems complicated, and it is. They don't make it easy to get approval for something like this. It is a very time-consuming and cost-prohibitive path to approval through the FDA. And basically, as it stands now, if FDA deeming regs go through unchanged, and that's key, which it looks like they're trying to make that move, all the products that we currently see on the market would not have that approval in place. So what we're calling for is for them to be grandfathered in. Obviously, if they weren't, it's going to eliminate a plethora of products that we use every day from the marketplace. So this is very crucial. The other thing we want to cover is, of course, the steps that you'll be taking if you choose to take part in this. So the national call to action, CASAA just talks about this on their page, and there is a link in the replay that it's going to take a complete overhaul of the proposed deeming rule. What's going on with this is today President Obama met with the Tobacco-Free Kids organization, and they are trying to get him to basically fast-track the existing legislation into place, which of course means that most of our vapor products that we enjoy now would not be included in this. You know, they would be prohibited from the market. So this is very crucial. And there you see it. So if the deeming regulations are enacted as written, and that's key, as written, 99.9% of the vapor products currently on the market will be gone within 2 to 4 years. So here are your steps, okay? And CASAA provides the nice CRC Engage or CRQ Engage form so that they will send off a letter on your behalf when you go through this form. And then tomorrow, Wednesday, October 28th, they have a number here. You're supposed to call the White House, and there is on their website, there are some talking points provided. I would strongly encourage you to go take a look at those, and yeah, let's show our support in this, because it's very crucial at this juncture that we do this. Hello, Jerry. Anything else?
No, I'm just spamming chat on the home page right now. If people are joining, so I'm trying to direct them over.
So, Dane, you noticed some things too, because there was a leaked document. There's a leaked industry guidance document. This is basically that guidance and approval process. This would be the guidelines that they use for that. And we're going to put that link in our replay as well. And I'm going to actually paste it in chat here for those of you in our live chat, so you can take a look at this. Actually, I can't because I'm not signed in. That's ironic because I'm broadcasting.
Yeah, it's interesting reading because the definitions are very, very precise about what vapor products are, complete down to components. There are a lot of things covered in this document, and I was surprised, frankly, that they were as thorough as they were. There's a lot in there, and it's worth a read. It's definitely worth a read.
Yeah. And let me see if I can find it here. I thought I had it, but Maybe not. Another very important site if you want info about this is fdaregs.info. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that up for you now here. So this site here, let me give it a second. fdaregs.info. This is brought to you by the people who brought you Not Blowing Smoke. Of course, our sister show, Attainable Advocacy, airs every other week when we're not on. So this is their basic guide to the FDA regs. And I really like the layout of the site. It's very clear and concise. It explains everything in detail, talks about the grandfather date and alternatives. And there's actually a page that you can print out here with a QR code. And this is a very simple and straightforward explanation of the deeming regs and HR 2058 and how it works. So I'd encourage you to go check that out. Again, that website is fdaregs.info. And with that information, you should be pretty well armed to face the opposition here. So let me get back over to the doc. Let's see, we had some follow-up from last week. As far as vape mail, we always go through our vape mail, Jenny. So if you got anything new this week, you're welcome to join us. I don't
have it with me.
You don't have it with you? No show and tell. So this week, I picked up a Goblin Mini. Of course, this is old news to a lot of people, but I really like this little tank. It performs well. The airflow adjustment is very easy to manipulate. Flavor's good, and it comes with a nice value-packed accessories here. You got a spare tank. You have a reducer so that you can set it up as single coil, 2 Pyrex drip tips, spare screws, all that good stuff. The deck is a little bit small to build on, but I did get a nice setup going. And I don't know, Jerry, have you used one of these before or no? You're muted. That makes 3 weeks in a row.
Okay, sorry, because I didn't want to drown everyone out with my my vaping, you know.
Your inconsiderate vaping?
My inconsiderate vaping. But no, I have not. I've tried the Goliath, but not the Goblin Mini yet.
Yeah, well, it's really nice and it's really clean looking. I mean, it almost looks like a dripper as far as length. If you compare it to something like a Atlantis, it's a lot smaller and more compact.
What's the juice capacity on that?
I think it's like
3?
2.8 or 3
2.8.
Yeah, it is a bottom fill, so that's kind of a pain because I know a lot of people like those new. What's the one with the octo coils and the dodeca coils?
Oh, it's the Smoke Tech tank.
Yeah, it's like the
what is it, FTV4?
TFV4.
That's it.
Yeah, TFV4. That's it. You were close. That's what I would have called it too. But the only thing I don't like about that, I see some people talking about the TFV4, is that top hinge mechanism to fill the tank. Because I know I'm going to end up with a pocket full of juice the first time I drop that into my. Well,
I haven't gotten my hands on one of those yet, but I'm told that there is a ring that goes around the top,
like a vape band,
and that kind of like a beauty ring, but it would hold it together.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten my hands on one yet, so don't quote me on that.
Okay. So that's pretty much it for me. How about you, Dane? Any vape mail?
No, I got rocks.
You got coal in your stocking.
I got rocks.
Oh man! All right.
But I am using my Jennie K3 Wishes drip tip. I just want to point that out.
I still have
last
Jerry's,
show I was not, and I felt bad because I didn't know where I put it, but it was sitting on my other tank, and I had no idea it was there.
I think I had. Oh yeah, this is another thing I wanted to cover. So these change.org petitions, they're out of control, man. I mean, I am a 30-something male, and I get an email from change.org about which states tax your tampons, and they want to eliminate the tax on tampons. I don't understand it. Like,
I can't.
It can't be
I'll give just a
targeted.
little pre-show background. When James got this email, and I saw this image in our Dropbox, our shared Dropbox for the show, and I opened up episode 38, and there's a map about which states tax tampons. I said, James, what does this have to do with vaping, and why the hell is this in our Dropbox?
I just don't understand it, Dane. First they target me with poise pad ads, and then tampons. I just don't get it. I mean, it's
I thought it was Jerry. I did.
I mean,
did.
I thought
Jerry
maybe my
opened it
wife
up.
hijacked my computer and she's browsing all over the place, and there's cookies and stuff that are tracking me, but she doesn't even use my computer. We don't even share a login. It should be like knives and World of Warcraft and like geeky stuff. Not, I mean, I
And
don't
now
know.
Guild Wars, by the way.
Guild Wars 2, that's right.
Wars
That's
2.
my new passion.
At least you get that kind of stuff. Dane and I get Depends ads, right?
It's true. Yeah, and Viagra. I get
And
that. A
Viagra.
lot. Yeah, I get that a lot.
Oh, man. All right, so yeah, they're pretty inaccurate. So there was an interesting video of Dave Navarro on HuffPost Live. We're going to go ahead and play that for you here. I don't know. I was never a really big Dave Navarro fan until now, because I did kind of like this. He put this guy in his place pretty well.
You know what? One day I woke up and decided I didn't want to smoke anymore. It was the weirdest thing.
You didn't do patches, you didn't do classes.
I went
you
to
didn't
the
do...
vape pen for like 4 months, and then I just stopped using it.
They're kind of stupid things, aren't they?
Not at all, man.
Really?
It saved my life.
Really? The
Legitimately.
vape pen?
Legitimately
See, Adam
saved my
here,
life.
our audio guy, he's vaping all the time.
Yeah, well, I
and
don't
I'm
know
always
if he-
like, well, just either smoke or don't, for the love of God.
It's not, but it's not cancer
Yeah, I
causing.
know, but then just quit. Do what you did and just quit. Like,
But I did that with the vape pen.
and it helped. Because
Absolutely,
every
because you
one of
can-
my friends who vapes just never quits vaping.
Well, I mean, because they don't want to. You know,
Yeah.
I wanted to. I didn't want to be inhaling anything, and so yeah, I just like 4 months in, I put the vape pen down. But I gradually went down on nicotine. So I started at 12, then went down to 6, then went down to 3, and then smoked it at 0 for like a couple of weeks. And then,
They have zero nicotine vape?
yeah,
Vape?
it's just a flavor.
Oh, interesting.
And then yeah, so it worked for me.
So the takeaway from that, Dane, is that he wasn't afraid to actually put this guy in his place, despite the
Yeah,
fact that he,
I thought it was great. I was glad
Yeah.
to see it. You know, kudos to Dave Navarro. And I thought it was really nice that he said that it saved his life and that it actually
Yeah.
worked for him. And you know me, I always like guys that actually have an end game, too. And here was a guy who wanted to quit smoking. He looked at vaping as a means to an end, and he did it. And he tapered himself down and weaned himself off of nicotine and then quit altogether. And I think it's fabulous.
You know, I think we're going to see a theme here, because we obviously, you know, we've got a story coming up on vaping in China and e-cigarettes and cigarette consumption in China. And then we've got a couple stories about some other carcinogenic products on the market. In
Who put the
addition to
China
cigarettes,
story
there's
in here?
things-
Who put the
Just
China?
for you.
Jenny, I don't think you're aware of this, but last episode, Dane went off on China, and apparently it has to do with his hatred of tourists with their selfie sticks in Las Vegas, and it's now affected his entire perception of a country.
I have a personal war on China. and it continues to this day.
Oh, international incidents just happening all over the place here.
Damn those selfie sticks, man.
Oh, man.
Wait, James,
People
we're going
with
to
their selfie
California.
sticks.
Wait till James is going to see it firsthand when we go to California.
see
We're going to be in
rats?
Napa Valley, and he's going to get selfie sticks all stuck up in his ear, and he's going to be in a war against China too, just like I am.
Oh, man. All right, Jerry, what have we got first here? Let's
We
get
have-
this show on the road.
Keep vaping China. Don't listen to the World Health Organization on e-cigarettes. So, when it comes to smoking and vaping, the world of public health seems more like Oceania in 1984 every day. In that Orwellian realm, Big Brother issued nonsense statements such as war is peace, slavery is freedom, ignorance is strength. In the U.S., the CDC and the California Department of Health have assumed the role of Big Brother, effectively telling smokers they might as well keep smoking or keep puffing because e-cigarettes are hardly any safer. You talk about Orwellian inversion statement. In truth, vaping is far less risky than smoking. E-cigarettes and other devices heat a nicotine solution to produce an inhalable vapor. They release none of the carcinogenic tar of cigarette smoke, making them the ideal nicotine delivery system for smokers seeking to reduce or halt their intake of combusted tobacco products.
Yeah,
I
Dane, what do
am
you
personally going to supply China with cigarettes.
Non-filter.
Non-filter, preferably. Yeah, I'm just saying I am going to be the pipeline of tobacco to China.
I mean, does
Oh,
anybody
man.
hold these people accountable for the statements they put out? Do they have a room full of censors that rewrite the facts and then try to convince us it's the truth, like like Big Brother, like in that Orwellian world, you know?
No, there is no accountability for this stuff. I mean, a lot of it is conjecture. So we see that all the time. I mean, and it's ironic we mentioned the Huffington Post because there's a couple magazines that don't do a hell of a lot of fact checking before they put out a story. And I understand some of it is contributing editors, and I get that, but there's still a responsibility once you claim you're a journalist to do some research. The article continues here. On a global scale, the World Health Organization is Big Brother. Dr. Margaret Chan, the WHO's Director General, is a confirmed skeptic. As she told China Daily last week, I recommend that national governments ban or at least regulate them, she said. Elsewhere, Dr. Chan has opined that e-cigarettes should be regulated the same way cigarettes are regulated, even though they are not remotely equivalent in terms of harm. So I don't know whether we mentioned the Lancet article, but there is an article in the Lancet that talks about the actual numerals here, the numbers when it comes to Chinese and smoking. So among men, this is among men, under 4% of women smoke. They estimate that smoking will cause about 20% of all adult male deaths in China during the 2010s. So that'd be 2010 to 2019 or 2020. In raw numbers, the annual deaths in China caused by tobacco will rise from about 1 million in 2010 to 2 million in 2030 and 3 million in 2050 unless there is widespread cessation. So researchers report that 2 in 3 men there smoke. So their smoking rates among males are astronomical in comparison to our smoking rates. Now, this is a statement. This is a commenter in the China Daily that wrote this about smoking. This was a recent comment. Serving a cigarette is good manners. When we meet our boss, we serve a cigarette to him to show our respect. When we talk to somebody, we offer a cigarette as a peace offering which will build trust observably. We thank our plumber with his fee and a cigarette. We serve a cigarette to a guest, suggesting you are very welcome. A cigarette, a nice cigarette is better, is an external material expression of a compliment to our shy, not good with words Chinese. Cigarettes help us talk. This is mind-boggling to me. Until I read the following. This is again in the Forbes article. She continues, only 25% of Chinese adults have a comprehensive understanding of the health risks of smoking. And less than a third are aware of the dangers of secondhand smoking. Again, this is according to World Health Organization. I kind of take these things, either take it or leave it. Obviously their facts are not always on point, but I did look and there's a lot of additional information from some surveys that were done in China about smoking, and it all lines up. Now, Ms. Sattel said this: if China truly wants to be smoke-free, it's not clear why the government, which is not known to be shy about imposing paternalistic policies in other areas, does not simply ban cigarette production and let e-cigarette use bloom. So that makes sense, right? Ban cigarettes and promote e-cigarettes. If you have this out-of-control problem with, deaths related to cancer. Okay. The state owns the China National Tobacco Company. They sell almost all of the cigarettes consumed in China. If their motivation was truly to benefit public health, then they would encourage their population to vape. And we're talking about China, which accounts for 95% of the global e-cig market. That's where a lot of this stuff comes from. That's one hell of an irony, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a sad state of affairs when you consider it, because again, you have to think about all the revenue that they're getting, which I believe it counts. I believe it constitutes like 12 to 14% of their GDP comes from cigarettes. So they're not going to let that go. They're really not. It's just too big of a chunk of change. I don't know. You guys have anything to add?
Well, I know it seems a little strange for a country to export so much and not actually use it. But when you look at world systems theory in a whole, when you're talking about core and peripheral and secondary type countries, that's kind of how the international commerce works. The countries that have the raw materials are exporting it to a country that makes it into some kind of material that then gets it to another country that makes it into some kind of product, and then that goes into the core countries. So, I mean, it depends on your perspective. I know I've got an anthropology, sociology background. So, you know, when you're dealing with world systems theory, it's just the e-cig market is kind of weird when it goes to that. You're getting like manufacturing with the e-liquid companies here that are also a tertiary and also a service. And when you've gone from post-industrial to tertiary economies, you're really not supposed to have that mix anymore. So, you know, it's just, to me, this is such a fascinating field on so many levels. And I just geeked out. I'm sorry. I avoided the World of Warcraft comment. I didn't start talking about my holy priest. But
oh, man, we need heals, too.
But I just geeked out on you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll have to catch up on the World of Warcraft conversation later. So the thing that fascinated me is just that it's such a stark contrast. I mean, especially when you consider this. You know, this is from the Lancet, okay? And they're saying Chinese men now smoke more than a third of the world's cigarettes. So, you know, they're saying 2 and 3 smoke in the Forbes article. When you put it in perspective like this, and they're smoking a third of the world's cigarettes, you realize how dramatically cigarette consumption or combustible tobacco consumption has dipped, and also how much it's grown over in China, which, you know, that's just shocking to me. But I don't know. And your observation about the e-cig market is on point, of course, because it still blows my mind that there's parts of the world that are much more forward-thinking when it comes to public health, and yet electronic cigarettes are not embraced there as of yet. Let's see. Dane, what have we got next?
Yeah, there's a very interesting story that had come to light, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. And the reason we included it in tonight's broadcast is this was done by the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is a research division of the World Health Organization. And the reason we wanted to do that, this story, is to show what type of research that the World Health Organization spearheads and what type of research they're putting out. So today it was released that processed meats, and probably red meats, can cause cancer. It was a W.H.O report that was done by the International Agency on the Research for Cancer, which is, of course, a division of the World Health Organization. They announced actually on Monday that processed meats such as bacon, sausage, ham, and hot dogs cause cancer. The organization also identified red meat as probably carcinogenic. I like that term, probably, meaning it's likely to cause cancer as well. Processed meats were classified, and this to me is all of it here. The organization also identified red meat as probably carcinogenic. That's great. Processed meats were classified as group 1 carcinogen to humans in the same group as smoking tobacco and asbestos.
That's
which is
crazy.
very, very interesting to me. Substances in this group have sufficient evidence of carcinogenicity in humans. So going back to that term the organization used itself as probably carcinogenic might not be so good here. Substances in this group obviously have sufficient evidence of carcinogenity in humans. According to the IARC, the findings were based on the work of a 22-member panel of experts from 10 countries. I wonder how many from the U.S. The panel reviewed more than 800 studies that investigated the link between more than a dozen types of cancer with eating processed meat or red meat in many countries with different diets. Probably the American first and foremost. The most influential evidence came from studies of scrotums conducted over the past 20 years. I don't know who added that in there, but if that was originally in there, that's crazy. According to a press,
was that originally in there, or was that Jerry striking?
I don't know, but
I don't know.
Red meats include beef, veal, pork, lamb, and here's the big three: mutton, horse, and goat. The organization said that the individual risk of developing colorectal cancer from eating processed meats is small. Let me repeat that, because let's go back to the beginning paragraph where they said it's probably carcinogenic, and then yet they classified it as a class 1, which is in the same class as asbestos. And I'm going to say this again. The organization said that the individual risk of developing colorectal cancer from eating processed meats is small, but increases with the amount of meat a person eats. Obviously, if you eat a whole cow or goat, you're probably going to get more cancer than the guy who just eats a little bit of it.
Yeah. The thing that puzzles me is, of course, we've got this infogram here. 50 grams equals less than 2 slices of bacon.
Correct.
And then they equate that with that, what was it, 17%, 18% higher risk.
If you eat 100 grams of red meat per day, which is about 4 ounces, which, if you think about it, is the size of a petite fillet in an average restaurant.
Oh.
Yeah, the new declaration is one of the most aggressive stances taken by the WHO, and is thereby highly controversial, even within the WHO itself. My biggest rebuttal to them, and I can quote the late Charlton Heston, and that would be, "From my cold, dead hand. I will not give up bacon, so see ya."
That's what I've been pretty much saying all day when I've seen this report. I'm in Wisconsin. Sausage and cheese is practically a religion up here.
Yeah, it's a way of life.
Get some good ones, too. Oh, man, the squeaky cheese. I love the cheese curds.
Oh, cheese curds.
So good. Yeah, you know what, Dane? You have to correct that. You need to say, "From my cold, greasy hands."
Well,
because you're going to have bacon.
No, there will be grease on it. I'll lick it off. So there's no way I have the death grip on the bacon.
Oh, man.
Go. The pork belly stays with me.
All right, so a few of you actually talked about this 2 weeks ago when we had our last show. At the time, A Billion Lives was kind of fighting the fight because apparently they had submitted an ad to Facebook for the film just to thank people for attending a vape convention, and they had a picture of a sunset, I believe it was. And that was rejected, basically because it contained content that was pertaining to tobacco products, so they were censored. Now, I know Aaron Biebert actually wrote a letter to Facebook. There were also some other things that were done here. Let me go ahead and pull this up if I can find it. CASAA shared the story. A petition was started. Articles were written. People changed their profile pictures and their names. They shared the story 1,000 times, and 100,000 people woke up. So basically, they had a happy ending. The letter that Aaron wrote, Facebook, Zuckerberg, was pretty fascinating. I mean, it was a really good piece, and it's worth reading. So I would recommend people. We'll have the link up there so you can read the letter. But basically, what Facebook stands for. They were standing against. Facebook's mission is to give people the power to share and make the world more open and connected. People use Facebook to stay connected with friends and family, to discover what's going on in the world, and to share and express what matters to them. We are making a film to help people discover what's going on in the world. We're trying to use Facebook to make the world more open, to stay connected, and to give people the power to share what matters most to them. A way to save the lives of their families, friends, and themselves. The letter goes on, but I just thought it was very, very marvelously written, and man, I'm glad they reversed it. But they actually reversed the ban, so that is good news for a billion lives. Dane, what do you think?
I thought it was a nice win for Billions Lives producers and vapors in general, really. Congratulations to Billion Lives, and I'm looking forward to the documentary. I can't wait to see it. I'm very curious to see what it comes out like.
Yeah, I think he really got a taste of what the community is like at its best, and I think that's one of the things that fascinated him. As a documentarian, he wasn't a vapor. He picked this as a topic that they would begin to research and vet and see if it was worthy of making a documentary. And the deeper he got into it, the more interesting it became to him as far as what was going on with government and regulations and what was going on, with the community itself. I think he was fascinated by the kind of inner workings of the community itself. And this kind of blew him away that, within a day, he had a call to action and they were able to get this thing reversed. So it's amazing what you can do when the community moves in one direction.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that's what we need to focus on with this HR 2058 stuff too, because that needs to be moved on.
If I remember correctly, and pardon me if I get the quote wrong, but I believe it was Margaret Mead who said, never doubt the power of a small group of like-minded people to change the world, for they are the only ones who do.
Yeah. That's very good.
You are prepared.
I had no life in
even in the
college.
script.
Yeah, Edmund Burke has one of my favorite quotes, which is "Evil prevails when good men do nothing," and that's one of those things where you think about all the people who they object to something and they're very passionate about something, but at the same time they don't voice that. A lot of times people fear conflict or they fear public ridicule, so they don't speak out. And a lot of these people are good people. They have the same goal that we do. Sometimes you're talking about your politicians. Sometimes you might have a local representative or a politician that has family members who vape, but he has this thought in the back of his mind of, how is this going to affect my constituents, my supporters? And, if you're not a verbal group that's approaching him and saying, look, this is an important topic to me, this is an important public health advance, one of the greatest ones that we've seen since vaccinations, and we need to make sure that people are allowed to do this in our state. Unless you do that, a lot of these men will stand by. Jerry, take it away, my friend.
Take it away.
Take it away.
Take it away. Well, Jeannie, I think we want to jump right into the interview at this point. And thanks for...
Let me get my hot seat on.
Get your hot seat on. So,
oh, man.
For me, when you guys approached me, I hadn't had any experience with Johnson Creek. And it was interesting when Tom wrote to me, he mentioned that there had been some perceptions out in the market over time, not all necessarily true, things that were said or some things that occurred back earlier on in your history, and that you guys were going through a brand, a rebranding or a refresh at this point, right? So looking around, I started to see some threads from ECF, from Reddit, on a variety of topics. So, we've kind of created a series of questions that we think will address, a lot of what's been said in the community and questions we have as well, to dig a little deeper and give you guys a chance to kind of respond to that. Maybe then talk a little bit about where you guys are going as a company and who Johnson Creek is now. I think, James, you had the first question here relating to some experiences you had.
Yeah, so I've been vaping since late 2011, and back then there were relatively few e-liquid manufacturers. Just thinking back, I know some of the ones that I had exposure with would be like Pink Spot, Halo, Johnson's Creek. There was also, I think COV Bruce, Clouds of Vapor, was around back then because I'm pretty sure his butterscotch was one of my favorite flavors when I first started vaping. How long have you guys been in business?
We've been around since 2008. We were the first e-liquid company in the U.S.
I did not know that. And this is kind of a two-part question. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was, back then. Well, I'll let Jerry address that because I think that's something that he's got here. Well, I'll go ahead and talk about it. So several years ago, there were claims that your juice frequently clogged coils, and also some people talked about the emerald tint that it would take on. Green tint in the liquid, and obviously it no longer seems to be true. Jerry's been using it and he likes it quite a bit. So what has changed in the process? Obviously,
you must be talking about those ECF threads from 2008.
Yeah,
but that was prototype juice. That's going back to like some early experiments with early NET kind of stuff. That was crazy. It'd be easier to explain what hasn't changed than what has changed. So much has changed. In 2008, we were still in Christian's basement. There were just a handful of employees, and we were hand mixing absolutely everything. We didn't have any machines, didn't have any labs, nothing. I mean, it was literally in his basement, and it was all kind of prototype type stuff. And then we moved to the facility in Johnson Creek, hence the name. And then we outgrew that facility, and now we're in Heartland, just outside of Milwaukee. Okay. And so now we have the lab, and now we have, somewhere around 30 employees. But we still have Christian, and we still have Mike, and we still have Heidi, and we still have this almost the same spirit as when we were. Like, just anything can happen. All we have to do is have passion and love what we do and take care of our customers, and we'll do it. We will tackle whatever we want to tackle. So we still very much have the same heart, but we've got much better equipment now. We've got much better ingredients. We're now all pharmaceutical grade as far as what we can get our hands on. The nicotine and the PG, the VG. For the flavors that use DI water, we've got the pharmaceutical grade there. So it's so much has changed. And in just my time of being here, a lot has just incredibly I can't. When you're so close to something, oftentimes you can't see it change, but here it happens so quickly that you can. So
the only thing I can equate it to is also just consistency has gotten a lot better, and that's across the entire market of e-liquids. By and large, if you look back to when and I was one of those guys that loved Boba's Bounty for a time period. And I'd order bobas, and it would sometimes drastically change from batch to batch. One time I'd get a wonderful tobacco and graham cracker complexity to the juice, and another time it would taste like sweaty gym socks. And they had some batch problems. It came down to like batches of e-liquid that just didn't pass muster. And I know e-liquid manufacturers have made great strides.
Well, Jerry? And I think it's not just the e-liquid manufacturers, not to try to take anything away from what we're doing, because we do very much strive to keep every lot tasting the same, or take away anything that any of the other manufacturers are doing. But now we actually have equipment that is intended for vaping. I mean, our bottling machines and our filling machines were bespoke. You couldn't buy them. You couldn't find them. We had to build them. We had to create them. We had to design them. And so now we can take lots and flavor batches and bases and all of that and run it through the GC machine, run it through organized organoleptic testing. Is it the same? Is it accurate? Does it meet the recipe? Is it following exactly how the flavor designers meant it to be? And is it the same as the previous lot? So, it's not just a matter of care and passion, but you've got to have the tools. And we're starting as an industry to get those tools.
And you guys always had that passion. I mean, particularly when it came to tobacco flavors. I know you guys were, at the forefront of that. But one of the things that we want to talk about, Jerry's going to bring it up here, is, of course, and it's kind of the elephant in the room, which is why we have to address it.
Absolutely.
So Jerry, go ahead and...
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when I got into this, I had known that you guys, I think, had made the juice used in the blue e-cigarettes, right? You had supplied that juice. And, for me, there are things that tick me off in vaping. And to be honest, that's not really one of them. There's some comments on the YouTube review I did, and some people are very passionate about companies linked to big tobacco. My thing, and I express myself, things that annoy me are people that use questionable marketing tactics, things that look like they're marketing to children, or guys that brew juice, in their toilets or something like that, and these are the things that upset me more. But this is an issue with many people, and they feel strongly about it. So, maybe you can shed some light on the relationship you guys have with big tobacco, and that, in that same vein, do you see a way in which that relationship you guys have can actually benefit the community?
Well, we've started making the juice for blue. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the year. You'll have to forgive me. I have a hard time remembering numbers, but it was long before Lorillard was even in the picture. I mean, here's a charming little story that I don't think people realize how small we were when we started working with Blue. The shipment that we sent to Blue was our first and at that point in time our only 55-gallon drum order. We had to actually order the drum to fulfill their order. So, it was long before Lorillard was even in the picture, and we stopped making, I think it was 2013 when we stopped making the juice for them. We took our company in a different direction. They took theirs into a different direction. But to answer your question of whether I think there's, or I should say we, think that there's room in this industry for that kind of business model, and absolutely anything, and I mean anything, that gets vaping in front of smokers and starts that seed of thought of, hey, maybe I should switch to vaping, then that's great. Because we want to see a time where every smoker is vaping. Yeah. We want to see a time where, maybe Moore's Law will kick in. And I know that's usually used for computer processing, but maybe that will kick in. Maybe we will get the power of these mods. Let's get it in the camera. There we go. Maybe we will get the power of these mods in the size of a mini. It's amazing how many customers reach out to us and call us and talk to us. They want the minis. They actually want cartomizers. I had a person ask for a 3-piece. What? No, no. Tanks. You want a tank. Trust me. So, I mean, there are people who are like my mother. Very much, she's a smoker from the 60s. She doesn't want to let go of that familiar shape. She doesn't want to let go of that familiar use. She looks at my mods, my collection of tanks and my mods, and she sees me carrying around pliers and screwdrivers, and she said, well, I just need a lighter. I mean, it's so, there is room for anything that works. Just because a mod's the right gear for me doesn't mean that it's not, it's not necessarily going to be the right gear for anyone else. And if somebody is happy with a mini, if somebody's happy with a blue, if somebody's happy with the little enjoys, if somebody's happy with a jewel, who am I to judge them? There you go.
Yeah.
So who am I to tell you that you're not a real vapor because you also enjoy using a smaller gear versus maybe sometimes you also enjoy using a mod. It's not my place to tell you what you have to use. It's my place to encourage you to use, and it's my place to provide you with information.
And Jennie, one of the things that we've always championed here is, to not lambast dual users, like the people who still have that craving for a cigarette and they're using something like this to reduce their consumption of combustible cigarettes. And there's a lot of value in disposables and the small rechargeables, because you have to remember we're trying to reach people that won't immediately be attracted to something that looks like this. They want a small form factor. They need a transitional device a lot of times. Maybe this isn't what they stay on, but this is something that becomes a part of their repertoire.
Well, and that's something that we hear a lot about is people start with the minis. That's the door opener. And I started with a mini. It was 5 years ago, but I started with a mini. And then I transitioned to an ego style, and then I transitioned to variable voltage ego style, and then I got into the mods. I mean, I very much took those steps. And, you know, if what my starting point was, why am I going to try to prohibit that? And I understand that people are angry at tobacco companies. I get it. I really get it. I've watched 2 of my family members die, and my mother has COPD. I get it. I really do. But if it reaches a smoker and it starts that transition to vaping, I want it. I want it. Let's do it. Let's take them over one at a time.
So I've got another question, and this one might be, I don't know. So for one thing, I wasn't clear on the fact that Johnson Creek and Blue had kind of parted ways as far as you being the supplier for their liquid.
A lot of people don't know. I mean, it's not like we made that big of a deal out of it. They didn't make that big of a deal out of it. You know, we just kind of went our separate ways, and that's the way it was.
But the thing that you have to remember is we're talking about a very passionate segment of people, vapors, especially those active on social media. So, you know, when they saw that tie between Johnson's Creek and Blue, and then, of course, Blue being bought out by Lorillard, that immediately changed the perception they had of maybe your company's image. So one of the questions I want to ask is, since obviously you guys have pre-filled cartomizers and you have pre-filled systems, and you obviously have open, loose juice and open systems juice, are you committed to open systems in the market? I mean, obviously the partnership with Blue was beneficial for some time. There are many that would see the foray back into the open market, and obviously you've been selling loose juice for quite some time, but they see it as an attempt to double dip and capitalize on the booming market that is, you know, your high VG blends and things like that. I'm all for capitalism, but Big Tobacco has many times voiced their opposition to loose juice and open vapor products, and obviously their lobbying dollars have gone into the closed systems, into those little cartridges and pre-fills. So, I mean, are you committed to open systems? I mean, as far as your resources?
Absolutely. When I hear that kind of concern, I wonder, do these people realize that we were in business before we ever got involved with Blue? You know, we always sold e-liquid. We're an e-liquid company. That's what we do. It's what we manufacture. And if there wasn't open source, what would we be doing? I mean, you know, sure, we could do bulk for some company that's doing cartomizers or, you know, the closed tanks or something, but you know, we started with open e-liquid, you know, open systems, just selling the bottles. That's what we did. And then, you know, we did develop a bulk program. It's a big part of what we do. We do a lot of white labeling. Almost all of it is for open systems. Blue was not an open system, but, you know, that's this industry. There are people that want your pre-filled cartomizers. Now, we discontinued ours. We just, you know, I think it was time for that to move on. But there are companies that specialize in the minis. They use the cartomizers. They use a pre-filled. I think Juul is one of them that is a closed system. And if that works for somebody, and if that works for those companies, then that's great. But we believe that the heart of this company, the heart of this industry, I should say, is open systems. That's giving people control over their vaping habits. That gives people the ability to build their own coils and to adjust whatever power setting they want to use and how long their draw is and how much airflow they have. It's those fine-tuning elements that once somebody embraces that, then they're no longer seeing vaping as an alternative to smoking. They are now embracing vaping on its own. And that's what we want to see.
Well, I think it's great, and I wasn't aware that the relationship with Blue had ended either. James and you had spoke about passionate community, and certainly the passion these days is certainly pointed in the direction of advocacy. Does Johnson Creek as a company belong to any trade associations that are vape centric, such as SPATA, Vista, the AVA, or even AMSA? And if you do, are you donating resources and time to those organizations and places like CASAA?
We are a member of SPATA, and we do support CASAA. I'm not privy to any numbers. That's kind of beyond my wheelhouse and what but we are active members. We're active supporters, and we always have been. We've always been a support of vape advocacy. We've just been quiet about it. And maybe that's on us.
Right, and I think that's precisely
problem.
My point, is that with a company as big as Johnson Creek, you started out small, you started out in the beginning, the ability to give back to the community is certainly at your disposal now. And at crucial times in this market, when the deeming regs are about to come down, and all of these legislative summaries that we had no idea about are starting to become a little more clear. What's your company's plan going forward to help the rest of the community and the rest of the industry fight these problems that threaten not only our vaping experience, but your very existence?
Yeah, we're going to continue to be active with CASAA, and I think we're going to start being a bit more vocal about it. We were quiet about it due to the perception of bias. It's kind of like the vaping company sending money to do a study on vaping. I mean, you've got that kind of perception of bias. We thought the advocacy organizations are going to be the best at what they do. And if we try to get in there and muddle the works, well, then their message is going to get lost because we are obviously biased and obviously pro-vaping. So, there's that element. I think we're going to start getting more vocal, start sharing more calls to action, that kind of thing. As far as going forward, what we're doing is, one, we are doing our best to stay abreast of any of the changes, any of the regs. We are doing our best to be ready for them. Anything that we think is coming down the pipe, we are dumping the money into it and getting the manpower up to be able to handle it. We are exploring what services that we can provide the rest of the industry, even for free. We have reached out to a few companies in Texas that believe that the age verification, verification that was about the recent bill, I can't remember the number, I'm sorry, that they are having to close down their e-commerce. And we've reached out to them and said, look, we will figure out a way that you can piggyback onto our age verification that we're working on, and we're not going to charge you for it. We will do this for you for free to keep this industry viable. Thus far, nobody's taken us up on the offer. So we're still kind of looking into things like that. We are boosting up our bulk program so that these small vape shops, that if they do want to continue to have house juice, but the regulations won't allow them to continue making it in the back room, or they just don't have the resources to set up the clean room or whatever, we're going to be setting up a bulk program. We have very low prices. I mean, obviously we can't do that for free, but we have very low prices, very low order quantities. Some of our order quantities start at 5 bottles. We are trying to make this as accessible to everyone.
So
if
is that something you guys are doing now?
Juice, we can help you.
Is that something you're doing now? Are you reaching out to specific retailers now? Is this countrywide or is this just in the Midwest?
Countrywide. Whenever we hear about somebody struggling, we try to reach out to them. If people have to move their facilities because of legislation, we've actually reached out to a few that say, hey, okay, so you have to move out of state because of your regs. Do you need our help? What can we do? And we took that cue actually from the bourbon industry, where I can't remember the name of the company, they had a fire, and some of the other people in the other companies in the same industry got together and said, let's make your liquor. And so we believe that having a diverse vaping industry, a strong vaping industry, is critical, not just to the consumers, and obviously the people that work there, but for innovation, for pushing it forward. One company can't fight whatever needs to be fought.
Right.
You have to have grassroots. But we're also getting to the point where we need to be more than just grassroots. We need to be more organized. We need, like you mentioned, the lobbyists.
Right, and that's precisely my point. You've had experience with big tobacco. You've had a chance to look behind the closed doors of what big tobacco can do, and I would think some of that experience would be ancillary here and help in this industry, because you've had a chance to see, and you know what it takes to get in front of the right people and ask the right questions and things like that. And I think that's critically important now, especially at this turning point when the deeming regs are about to be finalized. And I guess my biggest concern with Johnson Creek, and with any large company for that matter, that have been very, very successful in this industry, is it's put up or shut up time now. Now is the time to put up or shut up.
I think there's an element of your question that might be a little bit confused. Yes, we may have a perspective that is a little unique, but honestly, we really weren't that involved, and they certainly weren't that involved with us. We made juice, we shipped it to them. It's not like they had any say on what other flavors, any flavors we offered that weren't going to them. They didn't have any say on how we made anything, what we did, our culture, anything along those lines. But it is put up or shut up time. I mean, we've sent people to DC to testify. We've sent people to, FDA and put them in front of Congress. So, when we hear that we're somehow not part of the advocacy, and it's like, how does this reputation? And we've had our heads down. We've been focused on making juice, making flavors, trying to project industry trends, just trying to, do our everyday things, answering emails and phone calls. And, that's been our thing. And, oh, well, we kind of forgot to say this out loud, didn't we?
You guys had one of the first visible clean rooms as well, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and speaking of visible, I mean, this offer is extended to you gentlemen, and Dane, if you are ever up in Chicago visiting, we're only an hour and a half away, and you're only in Indiana, and I am sorry, Jerry, I'm not sure what state you're in.
I'm in New York.
But you're in New York. All right, well, if you gentlemen ever find yourself in the Milwaukee area, we do tours. And I can tell you all day about GMPs being ISO, HACCP procedures, full Tyvek suits, all that kind of stuff. I can talk about that all day, but seeing is believing. So if you gentlemen are ever here, let us know. We will schedule a tour, and you can see the lab for yourself.
I would love to do that. One of the things that I've taken away from this conversation, because I'll be the first to admit, Jenny, when Jerry first proposed this as an idea, I was hesitant, but that's because there is a perception that exists out there of something that is not. In other words, you guys have made strides, and you've I think that relationship with Blue, as much as it helped in some ways, also hindered in others.
It's true.
Public perception, I think the fact that you've quietly championed the industry is both something that can be applauded, and at the same time, is a little bit of a drawback in situations like this, because people may have those notions or preconceptions that need to be assuaged, and one way you can do that is by communicating with them. And obviously you've said that, you know, you guys are going to start being more vocal about some of these things, which I believe is going to be huge in continued success for Johnson's Creek as well. Obviously, we want to talk about the product launch. We've gotten past most of the most of the hard questions here, so I hope.
Well, you know, yes, they're hard questions, but they're very much needed questions. And
Yeah.
you know, we see. I remember being on the forums, ECF specifically, and reading a thread where somebody was talking about trying to clone ROTC. I'm sorry, Red Oak Tennessee Cured. We call it ROTC. And, you know, it said, well, I would imagine that they put something like, I think it was pixie dust or something like that in it to get it to taste the way it does. And then somebody said, well, I'm sure a few billions back, they've already fired the what was it, the Keebler elves that started it. And it's like, what? Wait, what? You know, so we have this like duality. Some people think we're this small little company, and I'll have customers tell me, you know, well, when you're there packing my order, you know, make sure you don't put any dropper caps because I have too many in them, you know. And it's like they think we're 5 people, and then there are company, you know, other people that think that we're, you know, fired everybody that started the company and that we're, you know, a multi-billion-dollar company and we've got, I guess, 1,000 employees or something. You know, we're very much a small company still. You know, we've got, what, 25, 30 people, something like that. You know, are the people that started the company, the founder, Mike, Christian, Heidi, they're all still here. You know, we've got incredible longevity. We've got several team members that have been with us for 5 years or so. You know, it's such an interesting, I fell in love with Johnson Creek as a customer. I started as a customer. And I then approached the company and asked for a job. You know, I've got a copywriting background. I've got a research background. I've got, you know, a few tech things in my background. And they said, well, we've got room in the customer relations department. And I thought, wow, I did retail customer relations type stuff when I was 16. But you know what? It gets me in the door. So I moved from Virginia to Wisconsin because I love this company. And I still love this company. I am so thankful to come in here every day to do what I love. And I wish there was some type of magical way through, I don't know, maybe something called social media, because this magical world of that, where we could kind of convey our culture, because I think we've got this reputation of being this kind of stodgy, almost the IBM of vaping, the vaping industry, and we throw things at each other. There's like a box of Nerf darts that we dump on each other. I mean, you know, it's just, yeah, there's a Segway. People, there are holes in the wall from Segway accidents. I'm just saying, you know.
Sounds like a good place to work.
It is.
It
really, really is.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's funny how this industry is, unlike many industries, this one is so visible and so accessible from social media now as compared to many others, that perception literally, you know, ebbs and tides at a moment's notice. And you know how gossip is, it's like that everywhere. But here in this industry, it seems exceptionally high because you have old forums, you have new forums, you have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you have shows very much like ours, and other broadcasts all over the place. And there's a lot to keep up with. And even a company, I think, such as yours, that's been around for a long and longer periods of time, they tend to get lost in the shuffle. We tend to forget. And I think as vapors, we tend to forget even about the companies that are doing well and that are doing right and that are doing things correctly in all aspects of their business. And it just gets lost. And I think that's a shame. And I think the biggest frustration for me as a vapor and as an advocate is that some of the big companies in this industry that are doing quite well still choose to do nothing. They keep their head in the sand, and they choose to do nothing and let this industry suffer, and there's really no need for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are sending people to Madison. We're sending people to DC. We are, when we hear of legislation, we reach out to even just small little towns and counties. And if nothing else, whoever reads the letter that we send at least gets some information. You know, we hold no delusions that, you know, we're big kind of in the vaping industry. But when you start comparing us to companies like, you know, Kraft or Google or Amazon, you know, all the largest vaping companies, still kind of a drop in the bucket. And so it's not that when somebody gets a letter, some county health board gets a letter from Halo or Johnson Creek or Deuce Juice or whatever the case may be, that they just stop the presses. They probably don't even know who we are. And, you know, but we still try. You gotta try.
Right. Right. Well, kudos for offering the outreach to smaller companies and help them bottling. I think that's going to be crucial going forward. I think a lot of those mom and pop stores are going to run into that very problem very, very soon.
Well, that's something that we were very concerned about, and we fast-tracked the bulk program that we had. We wanted to have affordable prices because, you know, hey, we can't make your juice for you for free, but, you know, because we do have to, you know, feed our families. But, you know, we wanted to make it as affordable as possible. We wanted the order quantities to be as low as possible. We wanted to offer everything from testing to label design to graphic arts to flavor design, or to make a flavor that you have already designed. You know, whatever somebody needs to continue to be in business, we want to try to help them.
Yeah, I think this pretty much answered the majority of the questions that I had in my head. I don't know. You guys have anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I just had one quick question, and then maybe, you know, we can, you know, talk a little bit more about the products, Jenny. So if you don't mind, just one more thing I wanted to address, because there was a post by Christian Berkey on YouTube in the comments section mentioning or addressing the relationship with Republic Tobacco. And saying that he should have addressed this long before now, and this was the first time he's really addressed it publicly. And I think that was a sticking point with a lot of the viewers, that I guess there's a sense that this relationship still exists, and you know, so what's the nature of that? And obviously it also speaks to the fact that you probably haven't done a good job in communicating clearly some of the things you have done tonight up until now, which has allowed a lot of these perceptions to linger.
Well, I think we've kind of identified a pattern here that we do seem to have a problem communicating, problem taking the internal understanding of things and getting it out in the public. And we're going to work on that. But, you know, we don't have a fancy PR firm. We don't have a big old marketing team or anything like that, you know, so you know, we've just got to get more sophisticated when it comes to communicating. RT. Yes, we are still involved with RT, but there are a few things to very much keep in mind. RT has absolutely no control over what flavors we do, what we offer on our website. They have no input on our e-commerce. They have nothing to do with what we do day to day. What we do for RT is we fill bottles with juice that we design, we make with our ingredients, USA sourced ingredients only, grass list ingredients only. We bottle it, we put them in boxes, we put it on the shipping dock, they pick them up with a truck, and they put them in stores. That's it. They move bottles.
So,
and, you know, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things that I want to make a point of is Joe Barnett from the Vaping Militia and I sat down and talked about this for a while, and I'm not sure. Now, is Republic Tobacco basically your gateway into tobacco stores having your product, you know, e-liquid
yes.
featured in tobacco stores? One of the things that I want to stress, and this is for all juice manufacturers out there, okay? stop eliminating tobacco stores from your potential outlets for your product. Because guess what? Who frequents tobacco stores? I'm sorry, I'm getting all agitated here. Smokers. That is their primary place where they get, they'll go to convenience stores, they'll go to C-stores, they'll go to tobacco stores. They're not going into vape shops all that often. I mean, yeah, if they've got a family member that vapes, that's their introduction. But what I'm saying is that if your interest is in growing your business and at the same time benefiting public health, don't eliminate tobacco stores from the equation. If you're sending out samples, don't just send them to the Alt Smokes and to the, local vapes and all of these other shops that are big and glitzy and everything. Send them to the tobacco stores too, because that's where the smokers are, and your product can have a potential.
you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. Vaping is an alternative to smoking. And where do you find smokers? You don't find them in the vape shops. People like my mother wouldn't know where to find a vape shop. There's one literally a quarter of a mile from her house, but she's never seen it. She's never been there. She has no interest in that, but she knows where her cigarettes are sold. And she knows where the gas station is. And another thing is, you got to keep in mind, we've been around since 2008. Some of our customers have been with us since 2008. These are not customers that are going into vape shops. These are customers who are begging and pleading with us to say, hey, can you please get your product in a store so that I don't have to worry about the mail being late and my vape mail being delayed or the bottle getting busted in transit. So when we were looking at going, getting into this, a distribution of some kind, we're like, what can we do to get national and to do it in one fell swoop? And how can we hit tobacco stores, convenience stores, and still support vape shops? How can we do this? And in the mix of our trying to noodle that around, RT approached us and said, we have this really massive distribution network. Maybe we could do something together. And we're like, hey, this sounds like it might actually get the e-cigs in hands of people that, I don't know, need them. So, so we were trying very hard to get the product in the faces of smokers. Yeah. If you are not getting your product in someone's face, you might as well not even have a product. So,
and to that point, the other thing too, and I'm not a Rush Limbaugh fan by any means, but my dad has him on in the car sometimes when we're driving, and sometimes I got to shake my head, but he talks about low information voters. There's also low information vapors, and that's not meant as an insult in this case. I'm talking about the people who are not going to go online necessarily to make their purchases. They want to walk into a store,
yes,
and particularly if they're a smoker, and they're not going to walk into a vape shop, and let's face it, the culture in vape shops has changed quite a bit. And it's something that a lot of people don't talk about. But Dane, you know what I'm talking about. You've got the cloud comps, you have the vape lifestyle, you have the glitz and everything that is now become kind of a joke to Funny or Die and some of these other sketch comedy groups. The douchebaggery of vaping. And as a smoker, if you walk into a shop that's like that, and you know what I'm talking about, Jeannie, or Jennie, you're not going to want to frequent a place like that. So where are you going to go? You're going to go to your local tobacconist or your local cigarette shop, and you're going to get your products there. So that's the low information vapor. They're not going to sit on Facebook all day and do fireback cloud videos and hand checks. All they're interested in is why we got into this in the first place, which is so that we didn't smoke combustible cigarettes. And that's been lost.
The utilitarian part of vaping is lost there.
Right. All right. That's
these are not people who are looking for a Snow Wolf 200. These are not people that are looking to build their own coils. They're looking for something that is easy. You grab, you go, you vape, done. and they're looking for it to be where they habitually purchase things. And if you, I don't know if anybody here in this discussion has had the wonderful experience of trying to get into like a massive chain like 7-Eleven or something, you know, like the big convenience store chains. You can't just call the store and say, hey, would you like to carry my product? And here, let me send you a box. You have to go through a distributor. And those distributorships have been on lockdown. If you don't make some deals with some larger companies, you're not getting in there.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, I don't know. I think this is a
very,
lot of
very
food for
true.
thought.
It is. I think we should talk about this new juice line. There's obviously there are some reformulated flavors here, and I am curious because I will be the first to admit when Jerry first approached us with the Johnson Creek idea, I vaped your juice heavily back in the early days. I've been vaping for quite a while, and I vaped the tobacco and menthol tobacco, and I thought it was exceptional. It was one of my all-day vapes for quite a while, for at least a year. I used it pretty exclusively, and I'm very curious to hear about the new formulation and to hear what those flavors are all about.
Well, we have started a new line. Okay, so I think Johnson Creek's becoming the king of different lines of juice. So we've now taken our original lines and smushed them into one line that we're calling the classic line, and then we have the vapor liquid line, which is the new stuff. The classic line are juices for the old school vapor, the vapors that we've kind of been talking about a bit, the ones that are using cartomizers for whatever reason, and they're using your TCCs, your BCCs, they're using the pro class tanks kind of thing, okay? So these are juices that are either PG free or a PG-VG blend, but they've got DI water added to them. They are meant to wick in that smaller gear. Well, anybody, there's a lot of discussion about PG-VG blends when it comes to the higher gear. When it comes to things like drippers and stuff, oh, well, you need a 70-30, you need an 80-20. Well, what you actually really need is no water or no added alcohol. Well, alcohol is not something that we would add to our flavors anyways, but the DI water was part of the classic. So the vapor liquid line does not have that. These are all high VG. They are meant for drippers. They're meant for, oh my goodness, you have an FAQ up that I wrote. Okay, sorry. It's just always weird every time I look at it. I'm like, oh, I typed those words. Okay, so these are meant for your drippers, your RBAs, RTAs, your sub-ohm class tanks. So it's going to be like your Atlantis, your sub-tank mini, Canteen Elite, the new smoke tech that I can never remember the initials. It ends in V4, and there's an F and a T in there somewhere. There we go. That's it. One day I will remember that.
Yeah, so Jerry, you tried these. There were a couple that you were just ecstatic about.
Yeah. The one thing I noticed is I'm not a big fruit flavor vapor because a lot of them taste either perfumey or too much like a candy. But I really like the baked apple and the plantain, and I thought you really, and the other thing too is the use of cinnamon. Where people tend to overuse cinnamon, so it wipes out all the other flavor notes, and it becomes like an atomic fireball sometimes. Yes. Like the baked apple was very subtle at first. I said, it's kind of very muted. It was, but the more I vaped it, the more I thought I was vaping an apple pie. And I think, to my uneducated palate, if I read a description of what a juice is supposed to taste like, and some of them are really flowery in the way they're written, and you're disappointed, it doesn't really evoke that flavor, but these did. These, and to me that's a win. If the juice makes you think of what the description's trying to impart, then you succeeded, and not everything's for everybody. Everybody's got a different flavor profile.
I will take that. I will take that as a wonderful compliment because I have a rule. I will not write, edit, tweak, whatever, a flavor description unless I have that flavor in my tank and I am currently vaping it. That is my rule. So if I don't taste it, and I don't taste it with a fresh palate or whatever the case may be, you know, if I don't taste it, it doesn't go in that flavor description. And you know, yeah, you make the words pretty. It's what a copywriter does. It's what we do. You know, you make the words pretty. But you know, it's you've got to be accurate. See, there's a trick that goes to customer satisfaction is you set the expectation and then you meet the expectation. And if you can do that, then you're good. And that's what you're doing with flavor descriptions. If you're too obscure or cryptic, well, what do you expect? People are just going to buy it because they're curious? No, you got to be able to tell people what it is, but not every palate's the same. So if you try to nail it down too specific, then somebody's getting disappointed. So.
I'm sorry, I'm lost in the spice here. I like my pumpkin vapes.
Oh, yes. That is such a good one.
Here. Yeah, so I guess that was pretty much it. Thank you very much for being on the show, Jennie. I don't know if there's anything else you want to cover while we're on here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for allowing us in here for inviting us. This has just been a world of fun. And, you know, I think we've just covered absolutely everything, but if anyone has any other questions that they want to ask us or reach out to us, you know, just send us an email or send us a message on Facebook. You know, we're here. We are given the weekends to spend with our families. So if you don't get a reply over the weekend, well, then you know why. We'll get you on Monday. But you know, we're allowed holidays off and stuff. We're treated really well here. So we want to be approachable. Yeah. You know, we want to see this industry be everything that it can be, and we want to see, you know, more and more vapors. And you know, we've got to figure out a good way of doing that to achieve those goals.
Yeah. Well, I think that pretty much covers it for this week. Obviously, we're not going to be back. Let's see, Dane, what is the next date we're going to be doing a show? Let me look here. So
that will be, as I'm pulling up my calendar,
the 24th. Is that right?
Yeah. We will be back on the 18th.
18th is Wednesday.
That'll be our next show.
18th is Wednesday.
I'm sorry. 17th.
Your day off.
Oops. 17th.
17th.
Yes.
So there you go. November 17th will be the next show for Inside Vaping. Of course, tune in next Tuesday night for Attainable Advocacy. I'm sure those guys have a lot of news in lieu of the recent developments here with the FDA. And until next week, I don't know.
Or the week after, or the week after, or the week after.
I'm going to show this off. So everybody knows about my love affair with my hydro flask, which I had the little...
That is ridiculously large.
This one is the Hydro Flask 64. Yes.
Oh, you've upgraded.
Growler. It is a growler inside a case. So I have now upgraded. And I'm going to get a straw lid for this so that I can look ridiculous while I'm drinking my beverage.
I'm going to fill it with moonshine in California, and I will take video footage from my phone.
Nobody wants to see that. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun at Cali. We'll have a lot of fun at Cali. So, all right,
so California vape shops, beware, we're coming. We'll be out there.
Yes. We'll be out there. At least, I don't know. I think my wife has designs on most of my time out there. So I don't know how much leisure time I will have to peruse vape shops, but we'll try to hit a few of them.
I will kidnap him. We will go.
All right, Jennie, have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much for joining us. And good night, everybody. We will
Absolutely.
See you in a couple
Thank
weeks.
you so much.
All right. Where's our outro? We have a lovely outro that I can play here if I can find it. It's probably not going to load, though.
That guy should win an Emmy, by the way.
Yeah, but it isn't showing up, Dane.